Welcome to another episode of the Muckin Around podcast. Today we're going to do something slightly different with a Q&A. My name's Tom Hawkins, the director of Springbridge Direct, and we've had a few customers and different people through social media sort of messaging, asking various different questions to do with the landscaping industry, and I thought I'd run through and sort of see if I could answer them with some of the knowledge that I've sort of built up over the years, really. So, I would say some of the most common questions for selecting materials would be, the first thing you'd have to do is look at, do you want hard or soft landscaping areas within your garden, and also the uses that you would use. So, if it was a front garden, for example, are you going to put a car on the driveway? Are you going to have a walkway, a gate, that kind of a thing, and get the general layout. And obviously, if you're going to do hard and soft landscaping, different areas, you need to think about the maintenance. I mean, hard landscaping doesn't require obviously as much maintenance as soft landscaping. If you've got like a green area or plants, you might have to cut them back or prune them. If the plants are near to the fence or something like that, it might sort of damage the fence with the roots and stuff like that. So that would be something to consider. The grass obviously needs to be somewhere where it's nice and light, and you can get a lot of good air, good use out of that, and make sure the grass can grow, and fertile areas as well. When selecting, I would definitely say it's for the design of the design of the whole garden and what the garden's going to be used for, basically. Well, obviously, you want to get a good return on your investment when you're doing a garden. So you want durability. I mean, there's no point. A lot of gardens, depending on the size of the garden, it could come to, £1,000 up to, I've seen some gardens, hundreds of thousands of pounds, even £1 million on some gardens. I mean, that would be quite a rare case, obviously. And you want it to last a long time. You really don't want people to sort of come to your garden in a year's time and it looks all dilapidated. So durability is good. I mean, I think, to be honest, I think you should prioritise all of these things. I don't think, do you want something that's durable that doesn't look aesthetically pleasing? I would say you can have both, and you can have something that's sustainable and easy to maintain as well. So I would say my answer to that is prioritise as much as you can, depending on how much effort you want to put into maintaining the garden at the end of, once the work has been completed. One of the biggest problems that we get is people ordering turf, and what they do is they forget that turf is a perishable product. This happens to us quite a lot. Not so much, obviously, when it's a landscaper or somebody in the trade that's ordering, because obviously they've done it before. But a lot of private customers, when they order the turf, they get it delivered and then they don't lay it for maybe 3 or 4 days, 5 days. They come to roll the turf out and it's completely black. It's dead. And then obviously, not only have you got to reorder the turf again, which is obviously a cost, you've also got to then try and dispose of maybe a pallet or 2 pallets of dead turf as well, which is yet another cost to consider as well. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest mistakes. Another mistake that people make is trying to match colours to existing things like shingle, for example. If you've got, say, half your garden has already been done and you want to just improve a certain area, you really want to try and match the shingle. Different, if you've got like a pathed area or something like that, different quarries, and even the same quarry at different times of year can have differing colours with shingle. And so that can be obviously very, very important, because it does look like we had a few scenarios with Cotswold buff where, somebody ordered 12 months ago, they ordered Cotswold buff and it was a white colour. And then they've gone a year later to try and match it. They've either ordered from a different supplier or they've ordered from us, but they've not told us, or not made it clear that they're trying to match something. And the colour of the Cotswold it was very close, but it was obviously different. And so I think if you're going to do something like that, I think, try and do it all in one go in the first place. That's the key. If you are going to then add to it at a later stage, then I would advise trying not to do that. But if you are, try and make it totally different so that you don't end up having a sort of two areas that look sort of similar but not the same. So value for money, I suppose that comes in a couple of different forms. Obviously, you've got the price of the materials, the flat out price. I mean, you can go online. Obviously, everybody's got the availability to shop around. There's, landscaping products. I don't believe there's like a landscaping sort of money supermarket type place where you can compare different prices from different suppliers. You'll find most suppliers are generally around the same, but obviously if you are, you have the option to go to your landscaping centre or builder's merchant or, someone like ourselves and get the best price. But price isn't always the key factor. I mean, you've got other things like the delivery time, how they deliver. Some companies deliver using like a palletways type service where they put it on a pallet and they ship it, and that can be quite awkward to get the product into your property. Or you've got, obviously we generally use like the crane to deliver, which is quite good because we can get over walls, we can get the materials onto shingle driveways and things like that. So yeah, don't always just go for price straight away. I mean specifically, we don't sell plants and things, but obviously if you were looking at buying plants or shrubs or, the turf that we supply, obviously you can get different grades of that. So you want to make sure that the product isn't just going to be cheap to buy now, but also, goes back to our previous question, is it going to be sustainable? Is it going to look aesthetically pleasing in years to come? Because you don't want to do this twice. You don't want to have to do your garden and then in a year's time probably find that it doesn't look as good as you thought and you'd have to get somebody back in to do it or do it yourself again. Manufactured, there's always going to be an element of using plastics and things in it, or using a lot of unnecessary energy, shall we say, to create the product. Natural, I think, is always better. Natural looks to me, and that's just my opinion, but natural looks like it's got a nicer. It usually lasts longer as well. I think I suppose a good example of this would be artificial grass versus traditional turf and grass. With artificial grass, you've obviously got the lack of maintenance. You really don't need to maintain it at all. But does it have that feel to it? Does it look that nice? There are people that would argue that they prefer artificial grass, but to me, it doesn't have that same feel to it that real grass has. And okay, you have to mow the grass a couple of times, a couple of times a month, the real grass, but it's got a sort of an earthy feel and a nice feel to it. So to me, it's what you want. What do you actually want from your garden? Do you want something that's purposeful and practical with very little maintenance, in which case probably the manufactured option is probably going to be better for you. But if you want something that's a garden in its truest sense, then I would say a natural material is always going to be better for that. If we come and look at things like a patio, for example, you don't want to let things fester. So little and often, I think, for when you're coming to sort of maintaining a garden and making the materials look better, and doing things more regularly, I think is the best advice that I could give there, really. I'll use my own patio as an example. If you've got like a green sort of moss or something that's forming, if you let that sit on your patio for a long period of time, it's going to be quite hard to get it off. It's going to be quite hard to get that patio back to how it looked when you first laid it. And also you're risking, obviously, damaging the slabs. The same would go for, plants or bushes in the garden. If you keep them well trimmed, they're more likely to flourish. If you let them grow completely wild and then hack them right back, you're quite likely, you're risking killing the plant off more and that kind of thing. doing things little and often, I think, is the best way to make the materials last, and make the products that you've bought in the garden last as long as possible. For example, a retaining wall, for example, I mean, that's obviously quite important to make sure that what it's holding up behind it's going to be sturdy. So the most important factor for me on a retaining wall would be that it's actually suited to the purpose, that the job of retaining what's, keeping the stuff behind it and not in your garden, because you don't really want, again, to put in a retaining wall and then find that the what it's retaining starts to collapse, and starts to sort of encroach into your garden area. I mean, again, patios, if we look at patios, I think most patios, the majority of patios are hard wearing. They're going to be like a concrete base or something like that. So aesthetics is going to be important. I think they're all pretty similar to maintain. I mean, I made a mistake in my own garden. I've got a really nice patio in my garden, but the sort of the grout that's between the slabs, it wasn't like cemented in. It was just a bit of, it's sort of, I'm not sure the exact sort of terminology, but it's just sort of it's just sort of hand washed in there. So it makes it quite awkward when you come to clean the patio. You can't just sort of pressure wash it, because you bring up all the sort of the grout within the cracks, and then you have to re-grout it all. So I would say that, I mean, yes, aesthetics is the most important thing, but then you do have to think about small things like that. Are you prepared to get out there with a broom and start scrubbing it by hand, or are you prepared to go out with do you just want to sort of once a month or once every 6 months even go out there with a pressure washer and just blast it all off, and go from think about that, really. I think there's obviously an issue of there's obviously a lot of talk in about climate change and about the landscape. So I think there's a trend. I mean, particularly with aggregates, trying to use recycled materials as much as possible. I think that's probably going to be the future. The problem with sort of primary or quarried aggregates, which end up eventually getting obviously made into paving slabs or to making concrete or anything like that, or using as sand to go in between in the patio or whatever, is the problem with the natural stuff is when you dig that out the ground, you do leave a big hole in the ground. You can't get away from that, which is why sometimes you see driving around, you see great big fishing lakes and things like that. They're usually old quarries. I mean, they're not predominantly used for just for landscaping materials. Obviously, they're used for building and construction and anything like that, building materials. But they, if you see a big lake that wasn't there 50 years ago, 9 times out of 10, it's probably a quarry. And that's great, but we don't want too many lakes around the place either. It was probably quite a nice wooded area or something before it became a quarry. So the sort of the future, I think, is going to be becoming using recycled aggregates. The downside to recycled aggregates, I think, is that they're not as aesthetically looking. If you get a bit of plastic or wood or something in the recycling process, it's very hard to take it out. Whereas with a primary aggregate, you're not going to have that problem. Because what it was, there was no wood 20 meters down in the hole that you dug. I mean, the only good thing, I suppose, about digging out the ground is that when a lot of these quarries now, they do turn back into sort of tips that you can backfill with your muck and your waste. So it does create an opportunity for people to get rid of their waste when you've dug out the aggregates. Although some people would, rightfully so as well, think that you should try and recycle your waste as much as possible and not just bury it in the ground. So I think that would be my answer to that, is going towards more to recycling and reusing things that were put in people's gardens, not trying to use primary materials dug out the ground. Well, I'm going to plug the turf again because the artificial grass is probably the most, in my opinion, uneconomically friendly material you can put in your garden. Turf is obviously a natural product. It's it's everywhere in this country. It's grass grows. It's a very strong, solid product, and it's good for the environment. And if you're going to go down the eco-friendly route and you want to say to your friends that you're doing your bit for the environment, and then you go and put artificial grass in your garden, I think you're a hypocrite, to be honest with you, because there is absolutely no way that artificial grass can be as good for the environment with all the plastic and everything else that's gone into it as proper turf that goes into the garden. I think this is kind of similar to the earlier question, really, of little and often. I think we've pretty much covered this in the earlier question. I think you've just got to keep on top of it. Don't let things get out of proportion, and don't let things fester. If your tree's starting to get, it's going to be a lot harder to prune your tree back when it's 5 times the size that it was than when it's only 1.5 times the size that it was. It's going to be a lot harder to cut your grass when it's gone a lot, it's three times as high as it was 3 weeks ago than if you just did a little bit every week. It's going to be a lot harder to clean your patio if you haven't done it for 2 years and everything's stuck to it. So again, just do little and often, and just make sure that regular maintenance is far better than having a great big go at it once a year. Well, it's important to Springbridge. It's also important to the customers as well, I think. I should explain what a FORS Gold accreditation is, because I would imagine most people maybe are unaware of what a FORS Gold accreditation is, and it's the Fleet Operator Recognition Scheme. And this is basically a practice that we follow for running our deliveries and running our trucks and how we deliver within London and the southeast with our lorries. It basically means that the lorries are green, that they're eco-friendly as best they can be, that we're not wasting diesel, that we're treating our staff correctly, we're making sure that the drivers are doing a thorough job, but it's also fair for them and they're not put under too much pressure as well. The way we maintain our lorries, are we following best practices when maintaining lorries and keeping the lorries good and roadworthy? Are we routing our deliveries correctly? So are we trying to make sure that when we're doing our deliveries that we're not going backwards and forwards on ourselves, doing extra mileage, and making sure that we're doing it in the most efficient way that we can to help the environment. FORS is a very, very big catalogue of different things, from as I say, from environmental policies to safety policies, to sort of best practices, and the FORS Gold is the top one, and it's very important for us to have that. And I think you'll find that the customer service is a byproduct of that. I think you get a better customer service as a customer. You may not see the individual benefits of FORS directly yourself as a customer, but the overall service that you receive will definitely be better based off the fact that we followed the best practices from FORS. And there are some projects we do for the construction industry, larger projects and things that do insist that you have usually a minimum of silver. I think they do say that you have to be FORS Silver or FORS Gold to be able to get on the project. It might be something related to HS2 or maybe a big building that's going up in London or something like that. So from our point of view, it's a good benefit to have that, because it means that we can obviously service those projects and work with some quite good companies as well, that maybe other companies wouldn't have the opportunity to do because they're not following the practices that FORS offers. So yeah, FORS is important. We will keep doing it, and we will keep renewing our FORS, and hopefully they keep giving us the gold standard and we keep up what we're doing, and hopefully you guys also can see the benefit of that through the service that we offer as well. Well, at the moment we're in April, so this is a very, very busy time of year. Spring, to be honest, is very, very popular for all sorts of things. Mainly, I would say soft landscaping products, because that's the best time to really lay them. You've got a bit of rain from the April showers, so if you're laying turf, for example, that really obviously it's helped, but it's not completely saturated. It's not like freezing cold that you can't lay the turf. The flowers are all blossoming, so they're going to root and everything else as well. So around the springtime, we've got obviously I think the soft landscaping products are popular. During the winter time, you might find people tend to do a bit more hard landscaping and things. It's got a bit more of a wider window for putting stuff down than maybe some of the planting schemes and things like that. So we're absolutely flat out now with everything soft landscaping at the moment, and I think that'll keep going hopefully for a good few months, up until maybe the end of the summer. Great, so they were all the questions from people that have commented online and everything else, and we'll probably do one of these Q&A sessions every so often. So if you've got another question that you want to ask me, or even if we have another guest on that does some of these Q&A sessions, feel free to send us the questions, and they can be put to me, and I will do my very, very best to answer them as best I can with the knowledge that I have of the industry and the experience that we've learned along the way for the last sort of 15 or 20 years of being in business. Thanks very much. Cheers.